Yes, good morning, Sushant. Welcome to this talk. Today we are talking about diabetic capital of the world. India is being called diabetic capital of the world, and almost 7.7 crore people are already confirmed suffering from diabetes, particularly diabetes 2, and almost three times people are at risk, maybe higher than that. Uh, so today, I think this talk is going to connect with a whole lot of people, who are either diabetic or want to prevent diabetes. And I know you have done wonderful work so far, and you have also compiled a presentation. So I think let's go through it and understand what a common man like me or anyone else can actually benefit and plan his health better, particularly from diabetes angle.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So, good morning. And, this has been a very, topic close to my heart because a lot of people in my family have been suffering from diabetes. My mother had a narrow escape from diabetes, and, the current healthcare system, as we see, has been just managing, type 2 diabetes and why it happened. So, probably before I start the presentation, which will give you a detailed insight, probably the thing is that diabetes is a multifactorial condition. Let's let's not keep it restricted to only carbohydrate diets and a lot of sugary stuff. So there are multiple factors. So let us start off and probably hope you can see my screen, sir.
Yeah, I can see you straight.
Okay.
It's pretty clear.
So as you rightly mentioned that we are the diabetic capital of the world, right? If you see globally, as per CDC, there are 463 million people suffering from type 2 diabetes globally, right? Including India, US, right? So India alone stands at 7.77 million, that is 7.7 crores, and it's growing, right? So it is just a number which shows that type 2 diabetes, people suffering from type 2 diabetes. But if you see, as you rightly pointed out, 3 to 4 times of these people would be pre-diabetic, and again there are other, as I mentioned, other conditions which may not come as as a pre-diabetic, but they are triggering impaired insulin signaling or insulin resistance, right? So let us get into details, right? So essentially, we know over last 50 years there's so much clinical studies and research trials happening, and healthcare system has evolved a lot. The entire the evidences which are available through research is actually fueling healthcare system precision, right? But when it comes to diabetes, we are not able to solve it, right? So where are we going wrong, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you see healthcare system, right from the time it was conceptualized, it was conceptualized at the time when people were dying of infections, right? And it has done an amazing job in curing infection and episodic diseases. But came to diabetes, it is just managing and suppressing our symptoms, because it was never designed to cure chronic diseases. Our ancestors never had chronic disease, right? So healthcare system was designed just to cater to their needs, and it has not developed. So the basic fundamental is they do not know how chronic diseases occur, like type 2 diabetes, right? So again, the current set of interventions, what we see is the number of companies and doctors and nutritionists will say, okay, go your HB1AC done, have your CGM machines, let's track your, HbA1c, and, we will, if it's low, if it's, we have reduced it, so probably, you have reverse diabetes. That's normal thought, right? It is a wrong thought, which I will discuss in the next slide why, right? And again, we
So
have,
what you're saying is अगर HbA1c पॉजिटिव आ जाता है, बॉर्डर लाइन से ऊपर आ जाता है, so what you are saying is don't worry, it can be still
no,
taken
no.
care. That is the message.
What I'm saying is that HbA1c is the last stage of type 2 diabetes, right?
Hmm.
So essentially, if you are saying that my HbA1c was suppose 7.5, I have have some keto or high paleo diet, or some diet recommended by my nutrition has reduced to 5.8. So it doesn't mean you have cured diabetes, because if you are tracking your HbA1c at 7.5 level, the damage has been done.
Okay.
So you cannot reverse diabetes, and I'm telling this to everyone who are spending a lot of money to these health tech companies and all the nutritionists, that do not track, do not go by suppressing HbA1c as cure for diabetes. And I will discuss this in next slide in detail. So again, human DNA testing, which we all know, human body has 25,000 genes, right? it tells, okay, I have an FTO gene, which is a gene for diabetes. It can lead to type 2 diabetes, but doesn't mean if I have that gene, probably I will have diabetes. Because, it just tell you the potential of developing a disease. It doesn't tell you whether you will develop or not, right?
Okay.
So you take DNA test any number of times, it will show the same information because your genes doesn't change from the time you're born to the time you die, right? So essentially, DNA testing also can be a good starting point in terms of understanding whether I have the gene or not. But what matters is how that gene is being expressed. That is what will determine your risk for insulin resistance, right? Again, anti-diabetic drugs like metformin or GLP-1 agents, right? All these things, effectiveness of this depends upon your microbiome, right? Because most of these drugs are metabolized by this microbiome. That's why the effectiveness of these drugs is hardly 25% right now. So now, so when it comes to diabetes, okay, I have diabetes. I go to doctor, say, what should I do to manage my diabetes, right? The right question is why and how we develop diabetes, because we have best healthcare system, we have more access to good foods, nutritious foods, organic foods, right? Why we have developed diabetes, right? That is the question, and that's what we all are going wrong, right? We don't ask these questions.
Correct.
So what is the missing piece? Again, the missing piece, let me divide into two things, male and females, right? So essentially, most of the clinical studies have been done keeping male biology in mind, right? So when you talk of healthcare system, first of all, they have never studied the functions of the various trillion microorganisms living inside our body, inside our gut, inside our saliva, vagina, skin, everywhere, right? And how they interact with our body and the food we eat, right? This directly impacts our physiology, right? Body's functions, right? So, these microorganisms make 57% of the cells, which we discussed in our previous presentation also, right? And 99% of genes which are expressed belong to these microbes, not human, right?
Okay.
And then immune system is on our gut lining, right? So gut is constantly training and communicating with the immune cells, helping them differentiate what is a good thing and bad thing, where they should start attacking the pathogen if there are pathogens. So, and again, gut is the largest colony for these microbes, our large intestine. As Hippocrates once said, all diseases begin in the gut, right?
Yeah.
And it was way back, so many years back, and we have forgotten it. Even if you remember, there's always a ad comes, that paid safa to har cheez dafa, so that clearly shows that you have those disease begins from your stomach, right? Again, this is a clear model of how we develop diabetes, right? So improper nutrition, right, which is not aligned with our biology, or taking too many antibiotics just to suppress symptoms, actually kills our microbiome. So even if you go for one cycle of antibiotic, it kills 70% of your microbiome. When there's a gut,
I think this is where I would like to hold the audience. And even there was a study by ICMR which clearly said that for normal small stuff, don't go and rush for antibiotics. We are creating multi-drug resistance, which is becoming a big problem. Even in UK, there were reports where people are now facing it. Second, it actually kills the useful microbiome which you have in the body, in the gut. So that's a very good point. I think people should look at this very carefully.
So for everyone who are listening, please listen this very carefully. When there's an imbalance get because of wrong dietary choices or because of antibiotics or drugs, as I mentioned, so they will start metabolizing your food and releasing toxins and bad things inside your body, right? These bad things send a message to immune cells, something is wrong, right? And immune cell starts doing inflammation, what is called as overactive immune response, right? So when you're constantly taking wrong things, wrong foods, wrong substances, antibiotics, your immune system is always on alert position, which is called overactive immune response. This inflammation leads to impacts various function of various cells inside the body, which is including the beta cells and alpha cells, right? Again, beta cells are the ones which actually, along with pancreas is insulin resistance, right? So essentially insulin. So this inflammation leads to impaired insulin signaling or reduce insulin sensitivity, which leads to insulin resistance. And that is what we call is type 2 diabetes.
And Sushant, one point which is very fascinating to me, and I think I should discuss with the audience. I have been a scientist in the field of immunology. And when we say that overactive immune response, so there is a huge hot cytokine pool which gets created when your immune system is active. So you will have interferon gamma, you will have TNF alpha, TNF beta, all sort of immune functions over expressing themselves, and that creates inflammation. So I really like this slide. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so just to add your points here, right, supplement. So inflammation, don't understand that inflammation is bad, right? We need inflammation because if there are certain viruses coming from outside of world environment, right? Immune system does it tasks, it does inflammation to kill those viruses and comes back to normal, right? So
Yeah.
what matters problem is when we are constantly having inflammation. The immune system is always on alert position because of toxin released by microbiome, and this is
Yeah.
what caused. So it is not only type 2 diabetes, every single chronic disease is caused by this inflammation. So next time if someone tells you, okay, diabetes is insulin resistant, inflammation doesn't have to do with it, so don't believe that, right? And there are a lot of research papers around it, right?
Yeah, correct.
Again, that so do not believe what I am saying, do not think that I am actually creating a presentation to push my product. I am here to educate, and so let us, research papers speak on its own, right?
Let's talk science. Correct.
Right. So there are, certain articles from Frontier and NCBI articles which clearly shows that, gut microbiome dysbiosis in type 2 diabetes mellitus population, right? So
Yeah.
I have marked yellow, right? So essentially, specifically T2DM patients show an increase in multiple pathogenic bacteria such as Clostridium hatabae, right? Or
Yeah.
lactobacillus species were positively correlated with fasting glucose and glycosylated hemoglobin HbA1c, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, evidence has shown that the microbes may be more closely related to TDM than was originally thought. High-fat diets typically result in poor microbiome health, which then shifts the gut into a state of dysbiosis. Dysbiosis that can lead to metabolic dysregulation, right? This is what we showed in our previous slide.
Yeah, so this is a very recent paper, I think 2020. Yeah, go ahead with the next one. Yeah, sure. It's a
So again, this
2022.
is an Bible of NCBI which shows that the connection of gut microbiome with every single chronic disease, right?
Yeah.
You see type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, IBS, IBD, asthma, eczema, type 1 diabetes, arthritis, right? They have clearly mentioned every single metabolite or the, release or toxin released by a microbiome which causes these diseases.
Yeah.
Similarly, this paper also shows that, type 2 T2DM and its complication by remodeling the gut microbiome through interventions such as drug, prebiotic, probiotics, FMT, and diets, right? So essentially, you can modulate by all these things, right? And prebiotics and probiotics. Again, probiotics, which specific in what quantity, what is for your biology, that is again personalization, right? So you don't go for an over-the-counter, probiotics. Okay, I'll take this because my doctor told this. You should know what specific strain is causing or which specific strain is missing, which can prevent type 2 diabetes. Right. Similarly, this is again, role of gut microbiome in chronic disease and narrative view, right? Linked with every single chronic disease. So here is, so if you call off IBD, certain bacteria decreases microbiome butyrate production, right? Type 2 diabetes, bifidobacterium, bacteroides, Faecobacterium akkermansia, these all are butyrate producers, these are negative association. So higher these activity of these microbes, lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. Similarly, if you talk of Blottia, Rumicoccus, or Fusobacterium, these are opportunistic microbes, these are pathogens, right? So the higher the activity of these, the more susceptibility to develop or risk to develop type 2 diabetes. Right?
Yeah. So we are talking science here, another important thing I would like to discuss here would be lately, people have been also talking about supplements and their role in diabetes. So what do you think, Sushant? What do you suggest? What is your recommendation when we take supplements? Do they kill or do they impact our microbiome to some extent, or how is it?
Okay, so let us go back and discuss. First thing is, always whenever there's a question, I ask why, not what, right? So why we need supplements, right? So again, it goes back to a previous slide of inflammation. So when you have a lot of inflammation inside the body, it means some foods are not working well for you, right? So to stop inflammation, you will actually, prevent consumption of those foods or avoid consumption of those foods. When you do that, those foods, because foods have both, good things and bad things. There are thousands of, compounds and molecules inside the food, right?
Yeah.
A same food would have nutrients and would have bad things also for your biology if you don't have the right set of microbes to to neutralize those bad things. So if you avoid those foods, you will start having nutrient and vitamin deficiencies. Now when we say our blood work show I have vitamin D deficiency, or I have magnesium deficiency, or I have iron deficiency, so these things, again, we know I have this, what should be done, right? So when we go for multivitamin capsules and all these, different over-the-counter supplements, right? The problem in this model, there are a couple of problems. First problem is that you don't know how much deficiency you have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how much of each vitamin mineral you need from, not from external sources. Second thing is all these supplements are made in capsules, right? So essentially, if these are made in capsules, they would have a lot of other heavy metals, right? Which on the consumption can impact, functioning of your brain, your kidney, and your liver, right? I think, sir, I've lost you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was telling you about, so these, there are multiple issues with supplement. First thing is we don't know how much of the deficiency it is, right? And how much you want. Second thing is these are made of synthetic items, and these are very, very high in heavy metals like fluoride, and all these, artificial substances which can directly impact our liver and kidneys, right? So
Correct.
actually, first thing is, and then, if you have type 2 diabetes, you have obesity, you have IBD, and blah, blah, blah number. So there will be every one supplement for each thing. So if you have 50 issues, you will have 50 supplements, right? So, and these are not going to suppress your inflammation, or probably, again, third thing is that, again, these supplements, whatever, substances supplements have, these are metabolized by your microbiome.
Yeah.
If you don't have that right set of microbiome, obviously because you have inflammation, so you don't have those microbiome, right? So this is not going to give you any supplements. You may think I am taking supplements, it is not going to help. So even when it comes to supplements, is we need a supplements, right? It's not that we don't need it, right? Because it all depends on the level of inflammation inside our body. So first thing is we should know whether we have that inflammation or not, what is causing that inflammation, right? Which specific food is missing out, which specific nutrient is missing out, in how much quantity, right?
Correct.
And then we should consume only that much quantity, right? What we require, right? And that too in a form which doesn't blend with these harmful metals. That's why a lot of companies now, India, it's not there, but globally also, a lot of companies are coming out with precision supplementation, prebiotics, probiotics, vitamin, minerals, antioxidants, adaptogen numbers. So they can mix. So there are companies who are making it. So they make it customized for you. And that's probably, I will share the end of the presentation. That's what we are targeting for the next 6 months, right? We want to build. So person who gets for a microbiome test, he can go for we can tell him what is the deficiency, which we are recently telling for all our customers, that what is your current deficiency, how much, and then how much of each supplement you require. And then probably when we build that, so we can build that specific powder which will contain all those supplements in the precise quantity that we can consume in a day, right?
Yeah.
It will be, first thing is, it will be precise for your body, how much you require, right? And there'll be no metals. And these can be directly, so this is what we call as postbiotics, right? So essentially, they don't need to be metabolized by a microbiome, directly passes, right? So because it is only the byproduct which your microbes
Hmm.
when they eat the food. So that byproducts directly goes into your body. So,
Hmm.
so you may not have those microbes, but these supplements can work.
Yeah, so they get absorbed directly
Yeah.
by the system.
So essentially, for everyone, don't go for over the counter supplements, like this. Just understand what is your biology.
Yeah, sure. Let's move ahead with the presentation. I think
Just a
a
second.
lot of useful stuff coming.
Yeah. So let us get back and see. Let us break the myth behind type 2 diabetes.
Hmm.
So as I mentioned, type 2 diabetes is the last stage of metabolic syndrome, right? It starts 15 years earlier. So if you are
Oh.
taking your HB1AC right now, you
Hmm.
started developing this 15 years back.
Oh, okay.
And because, you cannot say, oh, I had a sweet, last night I have diabetes, because
Hmm.
these diseases, chronic diseases develop over time. You
Hmm.
cannot develop in 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
takes 10, 15 years, even 20 years in some cases, right?
Hmm. Correct.
So again, as I mentioned, suppressing HbA1c is not equal to reversing diabetes.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
What happens is when there's a gut balance, the interaction between microbes, various microbes, and the food you eat creates a situation when first your fasting insulin goes up, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's a break in the communication between microbes and pancreas, right?
Hmm.
And your glucose goes up, and
Hmm.
then your HbA1c goes up.
Okay.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
essentially, the focus should be on preventing the insulin from spiking in the first place. If
Ah,
you
okay.
reverse diabetes, right?
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
is it is not about HbA1c. That's
Hmm.
the last stage. So
Hmm.
how much you suppress, whatever you take metformin, you take high protein diet, you take ketosis, it is not going to help.
Hmm.
It's just going to suppress it, right?
Hmm.
And every month you'll go for blood work. Your blood work will say, okay, it has improved, then reduced, then improved, or even CGM machines, right?
Hmm.
CGM machines would not be. They will tell you, okay, you consume brown rice and this impacted your HbA1c levels. You can track that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
What about, let me ask, what about vitamin D deficiency? What about cortisol levels? What about
Hmm.
magnesium deficiency? What about antioxidant production, right?
Hmm.
There are multifactorial conditions which we'll discuss as we move on the presentation, right? So
Yep.
essentially, this is the gaps in the current way of tracking the blood sugar levels.
Hmm.
To
Hmm.
understand is the molecular level activities happening inside the body. So again, this is a very important slide, because when we have diabetes or we have pre-diabetic, we generally take food which are low in glycemic index. But
Hmm.
surprise here, So what is
Hmm.
glycemic index? It is
Hmm.
a benchmark which was developed in 1988 by Dr. David Jenkins. It says
Hmm.
that everyone, you and me, consume the same food in the same way.
Hmm.
For instance, if you and me are eating banana, we will have the same spike or we will not have the spike, which is a wrong assumption, because whenever we eat something, a lot of food is metabolized by our microbiome. And when they metabolize, they synthesize into different byproducts, compounds, which we call as microbial metabolites. And these
Hmm.
metabolites impact your blood sugar level and how much energy you get from the diet.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So what matters is not your glycemic response to foods, not
Hmm.
glycemic index,
Hmm.
because the way you respond to a particular food would be entirely different from the way I respond. I've taken example. So these are two people, both people ate banana, right?
Hmm.
With the spike level of one person is, very high and then went down, right? And the
Hmm.
other person blood glucose level was almost linear acceleration, right?
Hmm.
So don't go for foods which are, don't assume that, okay, I'm taking low glycemic index food, so it will, help me preventing diabetes.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. You compare with any two foods, you take bread and banana. So probably both would be having different glycemic response to your body.
Yeah.
Or comparing, eating maybe, apple, you eating apple and your wife eating apple, right? Both will have a different response, right? That's why the current understanding of nutrition has failed to transform the personalized nutrition, which we say, okay, I'm offering you personalized nutrition based on blood works or DNA test or whatever questionnaire I'm getting it filled, right? To transform your nutrition approach into an optimal diet that can suppress the biological mechanism that causes type 2 diabetes. So
Hmm.
there's no such diet. Don't go by the so fancy name of diets. It is not going to help. Only thing
Yeah.
works is what diet is married to your biology, right?
Hmm. 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 Correct.
So again, this is important. A lot of people don't know. So gut and brain, they talk to each other, and probably this slide will surprise a lot of people, and they'll say, "Oh, this is wrong. First brain is always our in our head." No, first brain was always the gut. If you
Oh my
go
God.
back billions of years ago, when the aquatic
क्योंकि मैंने
organisms, yeah,
मैंने ये कहावत तो सुनी थी कि भाई दिमाग घुटनों में है क्या, बट दिमाग पेट में है क्या, गट में है क्या, दिस इज फर्स्ट टाइम आई एम हियरिंग. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. आई थिंक लॉट ऑफ पीपल शुड लिसन टू दिस वेरी केयरफुली.
yeah. So you see, when aquatic organism was they are living in oceans, right? They
Hmm.
first had the gut, right? And
Hmm.
that's how they used to communicate. They used to whatever they eat, and they used to. That was a way to excrete, right? And
Hmm.
then slowly, when things processed, when the ecology processed, and that's how body started developing brain, right? And
Hmm.
then most of the functions of the brain was transformed from gut to brain, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that's how that's how the human body when it was formed, right? It was so many hundred thousand years ago, right? So at that time then we had this brain which we assume take a lot of functions, and then
Function.
till
Hmm.
the gut and brain talk to each other through vagus nerve, right? So vagus nerves connect
Ah.
gut to brain, right? Lot
Hmm.
of neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
GABA. A
Hmm.
lot of them are produced in the gut, not in the brain.
Yeah.
For instance, 90% of the serotonin is produced in gut, not in the brain, right?
Ah,
And that's
okay.
why people can relate that if you have digestive issues, you may feel stressed out, or if you are stressed out, or someone if someone is going for an interview, right? He will have some sort of butterflies in the stomach because
Hmm.
he's stressed because of that interview thing, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that clearly shows in his digestive tract, right? So
Hmm.
he will
Hmm.
have bloating, constipation, or maybe some butterflies in the stomach, right? That's how so that's why I was sharing that gut signals tells the brain when
Hmm.
your body needs food and when you're full,
Yeah.
right?
True.
So
Yeah.
when there's a gut dysbiosis, this communication is breaked.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So the gut brain control of hunger and food responses
Hmm.
misses, and then it leads to overeating,
Ah.
right? It is not only about sugar, it can be
Ah.
about anything which is
Yes.
creating this process,
Correct.
right? So let's not assume that it is only sugar which makes us overeat, right? It can be
Hmm.
protein also.
Yeah.
Unlike people think that protein increases satiety. It do increase satiety, but if it's too much protein, it can lead to inflammation, which can lead to fat storage, which can lead to type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance and obesity. Similarly, coming
Yeah,
to
so that's another point which you said very clearly, that people, for example, these days, a lot of people are talking about protein supplements and excess of protein supplements. So what we are trying to say is excessive protein supplement can also augment inflammation, and
yeah,
that in turn can help increase diabetes.
yeah, I'll
So
share
one
that.
has to be mindful and careful,
Hmm.
not to play with the balance. It does
Yeah,
not help.
and I'll share this thing in detail about two metabolites which are released by high consumption of protein and how it leads to type 2 diabetes. Probably, it is all science. Don't
Yeah.
believe that I'm cooking it, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Understood.
again, gut obesity, it is nothing about obesity or weight gain is not about calorie in, calorie out, as a
Hmm.
lot of people think. Oh, I
Yeah.
have to consume less and I have to work out more so that I can lose weight. That is one way, that is a temporary approach. But biologically, ghrelin and leptin are two hormones. So leptin is your food suppressing, ghrelin is your hunger hormones, right?
Yeah.
So gut dysbiosis can dysregulate these hormones, right?
Hmm.
So that when you should feel full, you end up eating more because it
Hmm.
will reduce your leptin, it will increase your ghrelin, right?
You're right.
So essentially, someone who signs up for service, we tell them what is their ghrelin production score, what is their leptin production score at a molecular level.
Correct.
Similarly, glucagon like peptide and PYY, these all are the expressions, right? Which again controls your satiety, right? So gut dysbiosis actually can disrupt them and make you overeat.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Again, so if there is very low gut diversity, if there is, you are eating a lot of antibiotics or wrong foods which are killing a lot of bacteria, so you don't have the right set of microbes, there's not enough production of digestive enzymes, and then you will start feeling more of hungry, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Again, the food which we eat, Whether it gets stored into fat, it is consumed into energy, or it is used for various activity depends upon your microbiome. So microbiome impacts how the energy from food you eat is metabolized, stored, processed, spent, or harvested. Right? Which directly impact obesity, and this is really important. So when we eat a lot of foods is metabolized by our gut and converted into various byproducts. If these products are harmful, like LPS and TMA and all these bad things, right? They enter the bloodstream, and what they do is so these are toxins, right?
Toxins, yeah.
And our body is very smart, so it will prevent us from dying by storing this toxin in various fat cells, right?
Correct.
And when we have a lot of toxins, our fat cells start growing, and that's how we start gaining weight, and we become obese. And there's a lot of, that's what we call it, inflammation leads to fat storage and less fat export, right?
Yeah, correct.
And that's why we gain weight.
That's why we gain weight.
Leave calorie in, calorie out. Because
so I think this is another very important slide. People who have been trying to manage weight, trying to address obesity, trying to have better control on chronic diseases. This is a very, very important slide for all of them, for sure.
Yeah. So essentially, if you are gaining weight, you are not obese, you are toxic. Just remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a statement everyone needs to understand. Absolutely.
Let's come to the main thing. So how the microbial metabolites, it means the byproducts released by microbes when they digest the food you eat, impacts insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance, right? So butyrate, this is one of the most beneficial, metabolite, which plays role in diabetes, obesity, heart disease, even cancer, and skin diseases, right? So this is the most beneficial short chain fatty acid, which is produced by microbe. It improves our satiety. It regulates our blood sugar level. Right? Now we all know that pancreas releases insulin, right? Who tells pancreas how much insulin has to release? It is these butyrate producers.
Oh, okay.
Which tells pancreas, okay, so your oral microbiome tells your gut microbiome, I have eaten something sweet, there's something wrong, please instruct pancreas to release insulin, right? So this is the kind of interaction which happens inside the body. So oral microbiome tells gut microbiome tells pancreas, okay, release insulin because I have consumed a donut or some sugary stuff, right? That's how it works. So it instructs pancreas how much of insulin has to be released. So if we don't have these butyrate producers inside our gut because of a lot of inflammation, because of gut dysbiosis, right? It can impact the gut-brain control, gut-brain communication, which we discussed in the previous slide, right? And it can lead to hunger and satiety responses. So it can make you overeat, right?
Right.
And, it is not about self-control or wellness, because your gut microbiome is, the communication is broken, right? So that's why it impacts your hunger response, and you'll probably end up eating more. So again, gut is or low level of butyrate can disrupt the communication between butyrate producer and pancreas, right? So when it is not, so probably pancreas doesn't know how much insulin has to be released. It can impact the insulin sensitivity.
Yeah. So that's where I think dietary fiber is very important, and that kind of dietary fiber which gives you butyrate production, that's better. And this is where role of dietary fiber comes in. Correct?
Again, a lot of people say, okay, I know I have to consume a lot of fiber, but here again, what fiber you have to consume? Inulin. Let's talk of inulin, right? So if inulin is a great fiber and antioxidant, right? It is found in spinach. But again, as we will discuss, spinach is also high in oxalate, right? So if your body cannot neutralize oxalate, spinach can lead to a number of issues. So it is not that every fiber is good for everyone. Don't go by any trainer or nutrition say, okay, eat a lot of green vegetables. Not all green vegetables are good for you. To understand that each food is made up of multiple compounds and molecules. How those molecules and compounds are, I'm telling you this thing for everyone, this thing is the rule mantra, right? Every compound, how that compound is metabolized by your microbiome and what it converts into determines whether that food is going to be toxin for you or going to give nutrients. So not every food which is high in fiber is good for you. Yeah. Again, as you mentioned about protein, so this is another metabolite released by our gut, which is a pro-inflammatory molecule. So trimethylamine and oxide, right? So when we are consuming foods which are high in choline and carnitine, right? Which is again various eggs and chicken and a lot of pulses and everything. These microbes, if you have certain category of bacteria, what we call as proteobacteria, right? They eat these foods and convert into TMA, trimethylmethionine, right? And this TMA is exported into liver, which gets converted into TMAO, right? Trimethylmethionine oxide, right? And when it goes, this TMAO enters the bloodstream and triggers inflammation, right?
Okay.
And when this inflammation happens, as I mentioned, when there's inflammation, all the bad things, toxin gets stored in your fat cells, and you have reduced fat export and more fat storage. And that's the starting point of insulin resistance. That's why we tell, if you are gaining weight, probably you are at a risk of diabetes. And similarly, not only type 2 diabetes, TMA also create plaques in the arteries, by increasing the risk of heart diseases.
Okay.
Right?
So, Sushant, are we saying that people should not consume eggs or chicken or meat, or you're trying to say something else?
No. So essentially, there are two things to be answered, right? It doesn't mean if your neighbor or your gym buddy is eating protein, you should also eat it. So first thing is, which specific source of protein you should eat, because every biology is 95% unique, right? So essentially, a food, egg may be giving you, tryptophan, right? But for your friend, it may give tryptophan also, but it may, release a lot of bad things, right, inside the body. So which can trigger, inflammation. Similarly, how much you should eat.
Yeah.
If you eat, so the point is, our body is smart. So small, if you eat, first is gets into microbes in small intestine, eats up food. Oh, I want this much at this point in time, right? So I suppose I need only 20 grams right now because that's what my body requires. Let it go to small and large intestine. A large intestine don't know what protein is. So they will start fermenting protein, start letting bad things like TMA and ammonia and methane and all this stuff, right? Which actually creates toxin, which creates inflammation, right? Which can lead to digestive issues, which can lead to heart issues. So protein is not bad. We need protein for the muscle recovery, growth, for our nerve cells, for our blood cells, right? But how much and what is the source? And that's why you need to understand how each protein-rich food is going to be metabolized inside your body. Right? It is not about everyone is eating, I should also eat. Right? For instance, in my case, I cannot digest too much protein. My body wants, omega-3 fatty acids more, healthy fats, for unsaturated fats more, right? Rather than protein, right? Because if I consume a lot of protein, I have a lot of inflammation, I have digestive issues, right? So again, for every individual, it is different. You should not, go for, okay, I need to build my body, I need to lose weight, so let's have a lot of protein. That's not a right way. Our ancestors never know what protein was, right? They always eat a mix of plant-based balanced diet, right? And in this scenario, because we have been surrounded by a lot of bad environment stuff, toxins, pollution, right? Stress, right? Our biological functions, 40 to 50% biological functions are being impacted. And these things are in our control, what we should eat, and we should learn what we need to eat to regulate. Right? So again, this is the most important slide for everyone. So lipopolysaccharides production, which is again an endotoxin, is the most harmful, toxin released by a microbiome, right? And it is again when you are consuming a lot of foods high in protein, fat, fatty acids, so omega-6 fatty acids, a lot of fat, right? If you're fried stuff or you're eating, which are very high in saturated fat, right? And artificial sweetness. So if you are going for sugar-free biscuits, sugar-free foods, it is nothing called as sugar-free. They would be adding a lot of emulsifiers and artificial sweeteners, right? Which are again a starting point of insulin resistance. So don't think that it is if you're eating, because it impairs your insulin signaling. So when you're eating these foods, our microbiome actually eat them and release endotoxin. Again, not for everyone, because people who have high level of proteobacteria activity, proteobacteria, gamma proteobacteria, and all these bacteria and E. coli, they actually convert these foods into LPS. And this LPS is released into bloodstream, which triggers inflammation. So when you're continuously eating these high fat and high protein and all these bad stuff, right? This LPS diffused into body circulation, and then start attacking various organ systems. Right? So again, this is important. So if your LPS in circulation, it will impact your adipose tissue, it will lead to fat storage, right? It will impact your gut, it will impact your endocrine metabolism, it will impact your hormone production, right?
Yeah.
It will impact your brain activity, behavior, and motor activity. So you
Okay.
would have irregularities in your mouth.
Hmm.
If someone has red eyes or inflammation, that is lipid deposition around eyes.
Hmm.
A lot of people have, so they will either apply cream or they go for antibiotics.
Hmm.
Insulin resistance, as I know, inflammation causes insulin resistance, right? LPS is the biggest endotoxin which causes insulin resistance, right? Again,
Okay.
LPS triggers cardiovascular disease, heart disease, coronary heart disease, right?
And that's where I think all of these things are linked,
And
So
that's why
LPS is
that's
a
why
very common link.
go to a doctor, they will say, okay, you have type 2 diabetes, it will impact your eyes, it will impact your mouth, it will impact your kidney, liver, heart, energy metabolism, fat storage, everything. And the underlying cause is LPS here.
This one, yeah, absolutely.
This is very important for everyone to understand.
Hmm.
And when we talk of antioxidants, right? So there are a lot of antioxidants like strawberries, berries, green tea, garlic, ginger. There are a lot of these are really high in antioxidants are called superfoods, right? 95% of these foods are metabolized by your microbiome, not by your,
Okay.
right?
Wow, wonderful.
Right. So they improve your satiety, they regulate your blood sugar level, they overcome oxidative stress. So what is oxidative stress? I will discuss in the later part of the slide, right? And
Sure.
improve energy metabolism also. So make sure the energy is not converted into fat, right?
Hmm.
Again, any important thing is, so these, if you don't have these antioxidant production, for instance, if you're taking a lot of pomegranate, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you don't have the microbe which can convert pomegranate into urolithin A, which is an antioxidant, you will not get the benefits. So what happens is, if you don't have these antioxidants, right, during time of oxidative stress, your mitochondria, which is your energy house of your all the cells, right, gets impacted, because when oxidative stress happens, it releases, ROS, what we call as free radicals or reactive oxidative species, right, that impact your mitochondria, right? But mitochondria, if you have these antioxidants, mitochondria can repair itself, right?
Correct.
If your mitochondria is impacted, there is a mitochondria in your beta cells also, right? So
Correct.
if your mitochondria get hurt, your functioning of beta cells gets disrupted and you have insulin resistance, which is type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Because type 2
Correct.
diabetes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you see the connection between how antioxidant production or food which can impact functioning of beta cells and mitochondria, which can lead to insulin resistance.
Insulin resistance. Excellent. I would say excellent discussion we are having, and can be very useful for everyone listening here.
So again, this is the most important. Sugar, sugar is bad, right? Why it is bad? So most of the sugar we eat, it's consumed in large intestine, it is converted into glucose, it goes to our bloodstream, and it goes as energy to various body organs and everywhere, and that's how we do our task. When we're consuming excess sugars, right? Again, body is dynamic, it goes to a large intestine. Now, large intestines have a lot of bugs like Candida yeast, right? Who love sugar, right?
Yeah.
It is a feast. So when you start feeding a lot of sugar, these bacteria start growing. Now what they do is they'll change your taste receptors so that you
Need more.
tells brain, oh, I need
More.
right?
More sugar. Yeah.
More sugar. So you eat sugar. So you prefer eating sugar. Then they may release dopamine. 50% dopamine is released in the gut. Right?
आपको अच्छा लगता है. You feel good about it.
You
But
feel
then
good.
you
You
crave
feel
more
pleasure.
sugar.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they will disrupt your hunger or hunger suppressing hormones like ghrelin leptin. Again, it will make you eat more, right? Or they will break the gut-brain communication. So you end up eating more, right? So essentially, how this is a vicious cycle. So you eat sugar, these people grow, they will ask you to eat more sugar, and this cycle continues. So that's why we say why sugar is bad. So the point of mentioning this is that this is no brainer that people know that sugar can cause type 2 diabetes or obesity. But what is the mechanism? How this is important to understand, because here the role of microbiome comes into picture.
Correct.
Again, this is something a lot of people don't know, right? So oxalate, a lot of foods are high in oxalate, like spinach I mentioned, like apple is also high in oxalate, almonds, right? So these have good amount of vitamins and minerals, but they also have oxalic acid, and oxalic acid is bad. So
Yeah.
there are certain bacteria which actually does what this, they neutralize oxalic acid. It throws oxalic through feces, right? So you get only what your body wants, right? Similarly, food high in purines, like some of the protein foods, fish, meat and red meat, and there are a lot of other vegetables also which are high in purines, right? So if you have certain bacteria which can convert these purines into uric acid, right? You have a high level of uric acid. So we know uric acid causes gout and joint pain and body pain and
Yeah.
But the biggest thing which people don't know, the fructose, right? Which is also high in sugar, can also trigger uric acid, right? So if you have low level of oxalate metabolizing microbes or high level of uric acid production bacteria or both, right? That can add to the inflammatory environment of the LPS, which we discussed.
Yeah.
And it can lead to type 2 diabetes and impact various multiple organs. So again, spinach and almonds can also cause type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and they will not spike your sugar level. So it is not about your HbA1c, right? So that's why you need to understand what specific reason is causing you insulin resistance. Right?
Correct.
And blood sugar is only one of them. This people know cortisol, right? Cortisol lead to weight gain and type 2 diabetes, but let me explain you how. As you mentioned about cytokines, right?
Yeah.
So gut dashboard result in inflammation which lead to release of cytokines, right? Now cytokines crosses the blood-brain barrier. When there are a lot of cytokines, it goes to your brain, activates the HPA axis. Now what is HPA axis? Hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal gland, right? So your gut is talking to your hormones and everyone, right? So when it does, it starts releasing cortisol. Right? And when it releases cortisol, it further, disbalances your gut, right? Because it tells your body, okay, something is wrong. Please stop the non-essential functions. Only keep the essential function running, that is breathing and blood circulation. Right? You stop the non-essential function, you stop the digestive issues, you have gut dysbiosis. Right? You stop your hormone production, you have gut dysbiosis. Then again, when gut dysbiosis happens, again this breaks the communication gut and brain. Right? You again, brain gets depressed, start raising cortisol. So there is excess level of cortisol inside the body. That is excess level of cortisol. So it again tells body something is bad. So body starts storing energy. That stored energy is converted into fat. Which leads to insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes. And that's how stress, anxiety, depression is linked to type 2 diabetes.
Type 2, yeah. That's a good one. Absolutely.
Here comes your protein thing, right? So we know histidine is an essential amino acid which is required for repair and growth and tissues and nerves and blood cells, right? It also promotes histamine inside the body. Our regulatory level of histamine is required for our body, right, to function. But when you're consuming a lot of foods high in histamine, such as meat, dairy products, legumes, fish, nuts, and seeds, and you have these bad bacteria inside your body, they synthesize that into a pro-inflammatory molecule, what you call is midazole propionate. A lot of people don't know this, right? And again, this is based on research, right? This inflammation, impairs insulin signaling, interferes with the communication between butyrate and the pancreas, right?
Correct.
And high circulating level of this metabolite, probably if you're eating a lot of these foods, and if you have certain specific bacteria like proteobacteria and E. coli and physiobacterium, right, they lead to onset and progression of type 2 diabetes. So protein can also lead to type 2 diabetes. It is not only about sugar.
Yeah, true.
Now, this is an essential part, right? We know vitamin D is important, magnesium is important. Let's discuss both of these things.
Let's discuss this one. Yeah.
Now, vitamin D, we know it is required because it stops the augmentation of cells growth, which can lead to cancer. That's why vitamin D is good for preventing cancer. It is good for skin issues, right? It is also a great source of food and sunlight, right? So we get vitamin D from sunlight in various foods, but that is inactive form D2 or D3. The active form is that these butyrate producing bacteria converts this inactive form into active form, which is vitamin D 1.25 dioxide vitamin D, right? If you have low level of butyrate producers, right, there is a vitamin deficiency which triggers inflammation, impacts functioning of beta cells, and leads to insulin resistance, starting point of type 2 diabetes. And that's why vitamin D, people who have low level of vitamin D, right, which may come in their blood work also, right? It leads to, again, if you are taking vitamin D supplements, you are taking vitamin D foods, you are eating meat, fish, whatever it is. If you don't have butyrate producers, it will never be converted into active vitamin D. So just by going into sunlight doesn't mean you are getting vitamin D. Again, this is the most important thing, right? So as we do our work, we stress, whether it's financial stress or physical stress or relationship stress, our cells produce a lot of energy, right? And when they do that, they actually undergo a lot of pressure, which is what we call as oxidative stress, which I discussed.
Oxidative stress, yeah. True.
And again, when you have oxidative stress, it leads to release of ROS, reactive oxidative species. Now, this ROS can damage your mitochondria, as we discussed earlier also, right? And these lot of these mitochondria sits inside your beta cells, because every cell has this mitochondria.
True.
But mitochondria can repair itself with the help of a particular enzyme which require magnesium as a cofactor.
Yeah.
Right? So there are magnesium ions in this enzyme which make sure that they glue to magnesium so that the mitochondria repair itself.
Yeah.
Again, the production of magnesium depends upon butyrate producer and certain lactobacillus species. Correct. To convert magnesium in nuts, seeds, and spinach into magnesium. And if you don't have magnesium, it will hurt mitochondria, it will impact your beta cells function, it will lead to type 2 diabetes. And the biggest worry is that in our blood there's only 1% total magnesium into circulation. So no blood work can tell you the exact level of magnesium deficiency or magnesium.
Very important, I think, very important slides which we are discussing. Yeah.
So what we really need to do, right, is we need to understand, first of all, which bacteria, fungi, yeast, viruses, protozoa, archaea are living inside our gut. Not only who are living, but what they are doing, what they are producing. So most of the gut testing companies just focus on the diversity, means who are there. Again, right question is who are there, who are active,
what are they doing? Yeah, what are they expressing? What are they secreting? Right. Absolutely.
Right. So what beneficial products are being produced that regulate your blood sugar level? Is it antioxidant production? What is your antioxidant production? What is your butyrate production? Correct. Right? Can ask these questions if you're going for a gut microbiome testing. Ask this question: do you answer these questions or not? What your microbes are busy processing or degrading? Are they producing TMA? What is the cortisol production? Are they producing LPS? What is the oxalate metabolism? What is the cholesterol metabolism? Or what is the uric acid production? So there are multiple things. So for instance, uric acid, our research and our model says that there are around more than 500 bacteria which produces uric acid. Right. So every bacteria is at a different level. So it is, very, very complex. It's not easy that you'll find one bacteria and say, okay, my uric acid production high or low. Right? Again, as I mentioned, microbes talk to brain and immune system. So what they are communicating to brain and immune system? Are they telling, there are a lot of inflammation, please do inflammation. There are a lot of toxins, please do inflammation and kill those things. Or are they telling, these are the nutrients I have released, and we are full of satiety, we don't need more food, right?
Yeah.
What neurotransmitters they are producing? Serotonin, dopamine, GABA, right?
Yeah.
What is your nutrient absorption rate? Because a lot of these, vitamin D and B12 and K and magnesium and iron are metabolized your microbiome.
Yeah.
So whether your nutrient absorption rate at a molecular level, even if you're eating food, if you don't have the right bugs, the absorption rate would be low. It is not about consumption, but absorption inside the body.
Absolutely.
And how they're impacting various hunger hormones.
Yeah, true, very true.
So these are the questions when you are suffering from type 2 diabetes or you are at a risk of it. Don't only go by HbA1c. See what is your butyrate production or maybe vitamin D production, what is your magnesium deficiency, whether you are stressed, how much is you are stressed, whether you are getting the benefits out of antioxidants or not, right? So again, these are the questions you should know. You should know what is happening. So the starting point is only understanding the molecular activities happening inside the body. The blood works which you see is at the plasma level, right? Which can tell you, okay, this is the state of my body. but
Right.
I don't know what is causing this state. So to know what is causing that state, we need to understand these interaction happening inside the body before
Absolutely.
it goes to the byproducts released by microbiome, before it goes to the bloodstream, right?
You're right.
If you can decode, you can actually control.
Yeah.
So these are the things we should know, right? So if you see, if entire presentation, we have multiple factors in play when it
Yeah.
comes to diabetes. It is not only one thing, right? So let's break this myth around type 2 diabetes. Let's solve this. Let's not go by only HbA1c levels or some protein diet or ketosis or whatever nutrition, or taking have fiber, have vegetables. You should ask which fiber, which vegetable, how much of inulin, how much of resistant starch, right?
Yeah.
How much of water soluble fiber, right?
Yeah.
So these are the multiple questions we should ask, right? Um,
Yeah. So, Sushant, I think brilliant work you are doing, and excellent presentation. I'm sure, everybody would have liked it. I would recommend, if I'm in anyone's place, I would actually go and watch this again and again, probably just to absorb everything. Uh, uh, and since, I have been involved in this space as a biologist, I have done a lot of research, but what I know for sure is uh, not many people in the world are doing such brilliant work. And I think the way you are trying to solve it, uh, excellent. I'm sure, a lot of people can benefit out of this, and they will also register to the upcoming talks, which we where you are going to talk about various things, where microbiome plays a big role, how they express things, and it impacts our body, it impacts, creates, chronic diseases. So thank you very much. I think one of the best talks we ever had.
So for everyone who are listening, right, a lot of people know that we are doing a webinar on 23rd of December. So this was only a one angle. We'll be discussing a lot of multiple angles in that webinar. Right? So please do sign up, and anyone who wants, so I myself have written a book on Know Your Body. So basics about the human body, right, which will help you demystify how your body works. If anyone is required, I will be, we'll be putting this video on our YouTube channel. I'll be dropping my email, so probably you can write to me. I'll send that book free of cost to everyone, right? It's only about educating people, right? So let's work together on and overcoming this menace which is impacting India specifically.
Excellent. I think a lot of people should ask for the free book, which you have written, and that would be very useful. So let's sign off with this talk, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.